Has anybody talked to the church as to what their rules are as to getting together going forward?
As far as I know, there's still a limit of 25 indoors.
Oh, I thought it had been lifted to 100. Did it move back to 25?
I don't know. I don't.
Indoors has always been 25.
Oh,
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from Debbie. Usually she keeps us appraised as to what's happening. Phil is coming on. Maybe he might know of.
Yeah, I thought I saw Phil.
He might have heard something, but the last that she contacted us was nothing tangible. And I don't know if with my Knights of Columbus group, we meet at St. Cecilia's Hall, which is a fairly large hall. And I don't know if it's the state restriction or the diocese restriction, but they're still limiting groups where a substantial number of people are in the age group that we are.
All I know is I don't know what our governor was thinking. He quote gave the go ahead for senior centers if they wanted to reopen as of September the 1st. As of yesterday, from a meeting I had at the Stanford Senior Center, not one senior center in the state of Connecticut is planning to open on September the 1st.
Well,
They're saying it's ridiculous, not with the population that they have.
yeah, I mean that's the same thing with the church not opening up where the groups are, consisting of people over, majority of people over 60. So, I mean, even if, but I don't know if that's a state requirement or a diocesan church requirement. But in any event, we're still not meeting, and we only have, at tops, if we get 20 people to a meeting, we're lucky, and we can fit, 20 people easily with double the social distancing requirements. How many people we got? 24. Okay. 24. Shall we? I guess we'll get started. It's 10 o'clock.
Hey, we'll have 25 in a minute. Huh? Going up to 26.
Yeah.
25.
Why don't we get started? Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the sad note, I think you all got the email, and thanks, Steve, for including the obituary of Jim McEwen.
oh, I didn't see that.
Okay, it was attached to the, it was part of the email that Steve sent out. But evidently Jim passed away on Sunday, and let's see, he was 81 years old, and passed away on Sunday. And it says after a brief illness. Well, we knew that Jim had a stroke, and he had joined us even shortly after his stroke, and seemed to be in good spirits, so that in the fact that he had no control over his left arm and left side. So it came as quite a shock. Something else must have came up or was problem. So I know we all know Jim. He had always cheerful, happy, always had a few quips, and some of us were privileged to get almost daily emails from Jim with light reading jokes during the beginning of the pandemic, just before he had the strokes. So it is with great sadness. He was always there whenever we had a function. He came out and gave a hand, and was a really nice gentleman. If we could have a moment of silence in memory of Jim. Okay, thank you. Is there anything anybody would like to say about Jim? And to
Yes, he had a terrific sense of humor. And when he had his stroke, he said, "We, Jim, had a wee stroke." He said, "I guess it's because of my size." He was always full of pleasant comments, and I loved his Scottish accent. He was a real sweetie.
thank you, Phil. Anyone else want to say anything? Okay, Phil, while you're on, just before you got on, somebody asked the question, have we heard anything from First Presbyterian Church? Debbie, normally she'll keep me, send me an email of what's happening. I haven't heard anything. Maybe, are you privy to any information about what's going on there?
It seems to be just the same. They're still not open, really. And every Sunday morning they have an online service for about 45 minutes. But I don't think they're resuming activities. And we'll be the first to know. You can be sure Debbie will be in touch should there be any opportunity for us to come back. So not yet. I'm trying to make it optimistic.
Didn't think so. Okay. Well, I guess today's format, we're winding down our summer session. And I see Franco's got his mask on. He must have a virus in his computer.
I have a question for Franco. Franco, Quattro Pazzi changed their name to Tutu Pazzi. Now I know Quattro means four crazies. What does Tutu mean? Everybody?
Totally.
Yeah, we're all crazy.
All crazy.
That means all, Tuto is everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. So it's, well, we already knew that. Thank you.
So yeah, so I was. It is the penultimate summer get together, and then come the second week in September, we'll start off with our normal quote unquote format. We'll have our meeting and then have a speaker. We've got pretty much, we got speakers covered right now through almost the last week of 20, I can't read without my glasses, 22nd of October. And got a few people lined up after that. So today it'll be just a social meeting. And if anybody, Alan Sosnowitz, has some interjections that he wants to put in sporadically, some humorous footnotes,
Oh, for
we're
sure.
open to that. And anything, anybody wants to say anything about the
Yes.
last few conventions?
Once again, the Stanford CERT team will be distributing masks at Rippewam. Last week, I'm very proud about this. We give away 10 packs, and last week we had 1,600 cars between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's 16,000 masks that we gave away, and it was all walks of life. It was sports cars, and Stu showed up on his motorcycle, and luxury cars and crappy cars and pickup trucks, but all of Stanford turned out to get their masks. It was very, very rewarding to see, and we did it very efficiently.
Let me comment on that. It was incredibly efficient. It was almost like a drive-by. I mean, I hurried put on my brakes to pick up my packet. But Stu, I didn't see you on your motorcycle.
I was there.
He was there.
I didn't see either Stu or Alan, and I drove by after going to the farmer's market there. But it was really efficient. I was amazed at how good it was.
Plenty of workers, and everybody chipped in, and the way they had us spaced 4 car lengths apart so that we could send you down to the first car and hand everybody through the window. It was, I mean, 1,600 cars in 4 hours. It was like a New Jersey toll booth or something.
He didn't collect tolls.
It was very well. We went there after coming back from the doctor's office.
Well, if you need more, we're doing it again today, and right after this meeting, that's where I'm heading as well.
The masks actually wash very well, and they're very reusable.
Good. Will you take in all of ours to wash?
How do you wash them, Larry?
Susan just throws them in the washing machine with the regular wash.
Ah,
I just put one in yesterday.
I just wear them until they wear out.
yeah.
But
I didn't know those were washable.
Yes, they're washable.
I had a surprise of my life. I was driving, I guess it was Tuesday, on a windy day, and I like to drive my windows open. And a big gust of wind came in, took off my mask because I happened to have it on, and blew it out of the car. And no idea where it went. And I still had to go where I was going, and I needed a mask to there. So fortunately, my wife leaves her rain bonnet in the glove compartment in case it rains. So that's what I wore. I took up what I had to do and came home.
It shows you got to keep an extra mask in the car.
I should, but it's the old story. After the horses leave the barn, you close the door.
So you'll be stopping by today for some more masks, Lloyd?
I think so, yes.
Okay. I'll give you 2 packs if you need them.
I've got a question for Alan. Alan, who makes up the crew members at the Rippewam?
Well, it's the CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, and we are trained. I've been on the CERT group for probably close to 10 years now since it first started out. We help out mostly with the parades, doing pedestrian crosswalks and so on. We did help out a lot during Sandy. We don't do police work yet. We've been trained by police. We've done traffic control during some funerals, especially in New Canaan. So we've been trained by police, fire, EMTs, and the people that do the sheltering. We're even equipped to help with animals during a storm. And then the mass giveaways. I mean, otherwise the police department or fire department would be doing this kind of thing, and we need them for other things. So I'm very proud to be part of that team, and I'm really proud of the amount of masks we gave away just last week. If somebody
Alan had to get his ham license for it.
get a what?
You had to get your ham license.
Oh, that's right. I had to get my ham radio license to do this. Right. And those of you that don't know, I was a radio operator with the 4th Infantry in Vietnam. So whenever they're handing out the radios, they say, don't give one to Alan because he's going to call in air support and artillery and paratroopers and everything else. So don't put a radio in his hands.
Just to kick things off, anybody got any views or thoughts on these
I
the
tried
new conventions that we have last week and this week?
I chimed
Hey,
in
this is
late.
Jerry.
So excuse me.
Oh, go ahead, Alan.
Did you do a eulogy for Jim?
Yes, we
Yes.
did.
You did. Okay. Because he was the most likable guy. As soon as he joined, I met up with him very quickly, and we started sharing limericks together. And he would start one and we'd finish it together, and I would start one and finish it together. And the silliest one that we came up with was, a silly little bird is a pelican. And then he joined right in with me. Said, his beak can hold more than his belly can. He can hold in that beak enough food for a week, and I don't know how the hell he can.
Good one. That's an old one.
It is an old one, but Jim and I said that together. He was just a very, very likable guy. And I had no idea he was 81. Holy smokes, I thought he was 10 years younger than me. So he lived a good life. He was a good man. Thank you for that, Joe.
This is Jerry. I just wanted to tell you that there is a member of the Songsters who will be performing this weekend at the Curtain Call Cabaret, which is held on the Sterling Farms lawn. And that will be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And one member will be performing. I won't give you his name, but his initials are JK. And by the way, I'm sorry to say they are completely sold out. If you've missed a Curtain Call Cabaret on the lawn before, if they have any more of them, it really is a lot of fun. And it's a great idea to get out. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will mention that when they have Michelle Grace, she is a terrific singer of the classical popular songs that we all grew up loving, and she performs with a variety of different accompanists, Chris Coogan and a guy named Lou Turano sometimes. And I encourage you to actually go and see her perform. I think she does.
Jerry, when you do the performance, can you turn the volume up loud? I'll probably hear it from my house.
I'll work on that, Joe.
All right. So yeah, I mean, like I said, to kick things off, anybody want to say anything about their thoughts on these conventions that we're having on TV?
I'll make a mention of one thing that I thought was unique and really, really good was in the Democratic convention, the roll call of the states where they had, ordinary citizens step up, and you saw the background of some of the states, like in Iowa, I think they were doing it from a cornfield or whatever. I thought that was rather unique and a hell of a lot better than when they did it at the normal conventions. You got to see what the actual citizens look like.
That was terrific.
My only problem with the conventions was when I turned on the TV, that's all I could get all day long. I couldn't get any news or anything, just the convention. I mean, they were fine, but...
That's not true. You got the wrong channels.
I don't know.
HBO wasn't broadcasting.
You got to go to USA Network or one of those,
You can also,
watch reruns of Star Trek and
there is a very good on Netflix show called The Spy. It is a 6-episode mini documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's about an Israeli spy who infiltrated Syria during the 60s to provide information on what was happening in the Golan Heights.
I would second that motion. It's a very good show.
Yeah, I saw it also. It's excellent.
Really good.
What was the name of it again?
The Spy.
Okay.
Speaking of Netflix, if you want to see something of a representation of our current culture, you want to see Politician. It takes place in high school out in a very exclusive area of California. But the mores that they portray are so representative of attitudes that we have in this country, and really worthwhile to see.
I want to talk about the conventions. The only comment I have is they're too political.
And they're partisan.
Yeah, very important.
Very partisan.
It has more to do with the culture that we live in.
I have a question for absentee or mail ballot. When will the town clerk start mailing those out? And do you have to request one in Stamford, or do you will they automatically be going out?
Yes.
There was a big article in the paper a couple of days ago on this subject. I think they're going to send out broadly to everyone an application around September 1st, and then October 1st around there, then they will send the ballot to you if you have requested.
You have to request it.
Yeah, you have to return that application.
Right, okay.
Originally, you had to request an application for an absentee ballot from the Secretary of the State's office, which is something I had done for my wife and I. And now I'm not sure if I have to do it again or it's automatically there. And I haven't seen anything in all the articles in the paper about that.
Yeah.
I read what Stu read.
Yeah, it's
they'll
going to send out.
Application, and then you have to send it back in.
Yeah, that's how they did it for the primary.
Right.
You know, the primary came from the state, but I believe for the election, I think like Stu said, there was something there that said that the elections will be coming from the locality. The request for the
Yeah, the Secretary of State said it was too much work to send it from Hartford. So each local election boards now have to send them out.
Well, it didn't go back to Hartford. It went back to the local election board. This was for the primary. However, they sent out the initial request for the absentee ballot. And then you sent it back to the local board, and then they sent the actual ballot. But I think now that supposedly everything's supposed to go through the local boards. But as somebody pointed out, you go to the supermarket, you go to all of these places today, and unless you really isolate yourself, they didn't think that the voting would be that problematic. So I don't know. I'm tossed.
What do people think of the drop-off box that they had this last election? They had 2 drop-off boxes for the primary.
How used were they?
What's that?
How used were they?
I don't know. I
It
used
was the
it.
government center.
And I went at the Harry Bennett branch.
There's one at the Harry Bennett.
Yeah, I went there at the library. It was very easy.
Do you think it's as secure, quote, as secure?
Oh, yeah. Much more secure than the mailboxes.
who actually picks them up? The election board or from those secure boxes?
I don't know.
Although I read recently in the paper that September 15th was supposed to be the time that they start mailing out absentee ballot applications. Or maybe I misunderstood what I was reading, but that's what it seems to me is kind of the timeline that they're talking about. I have done absentee ballot voting for the last 5 years. So, you know, it's really no problem. But the key and things to remember, you must sign the ballot and date it. And by the way, sign it in ink because your signature is required to be in ink.
I actually think in the primary ballot, I think you sign the inner envelope.
Right, that's the ballot envelope.
Not the ballot itself, the inner envelope.
The inner envelope, right. That's the ballot envelope.
Right.
And then you put that in another envelope, which you send forward it out. I can't remember whether I had to put a stamp on or not. That I don't remember. Kind of automatic. So I suspect, knowing the city, you probably had to put a stamp on it.
I don't think you did on the
No, I don't remember.
primary. I don't think so.
No, yeah.
The post office will just take it as another loss. Anybody want to bring up any other? I see Joe stepped away for a bit. Any other topic that anyone would want to bring up for controversial discussion?
Yeah. What about this new CDC ruling that they want to somehow limit testing that came out last night? It seems crazy.
Yes, it does.
There's been a lot of talk that it was politically motivated, forced upon them.
It would seem that way. It's terrible.
Nobody has the backbone to stand up and say, you know, we won't do this.
Because especially since Fauci wasn't at the meeting, he was being operated on.
Anybody with the backbone gets fired.
Well, what was the new advice?
That if you don't have a symptom, then you shouldn't do the testing. I think that's what they said.
A friend of my daughter's said that when they first came out and said that, when the president said if we slowed down the testing, you wouldn't know how many people have it. And a friend of my daughter said, gee, if I knew that's the way it worked, I would have never taken that pregnancy test.
That's good.
Good analogy.
On that subject, there's a commercial that's been going around. I don't know if anyone has seen it. Recently, this is a father and son in a supermarket, and the son takes something off the shelf, puts it in the basket, and the father takes it back, and the son takes it back out again, and the father puts it back, and the kid throws a conniption fit, and he's yelling and screaming and pulling things off shelves and throwing them on the ground and everything else, and then the commercial finishes with the comment, use condoms.
Oh, geez. Crazy.
That's not on one of the broadcast channels, right?
No, I think it started in Europe and it's been battering around with being forwarded all over the place. If I still have it and if you haven't seen it, I'll try and get a post out to everybody. Steve, I'll let you know what it is.
Okay. It's, you know, at least that one made sense. Half these commercials that they have seem to have no relation to the product that they're selling.
The Geico commercial.
Yeah.
I was on an airplane one time and there was a father, mother, daughter, and son-in-law sitting in the two-seat part. So they had 2 rows of the 2 seats. And I was sitting across the aisle in the 3-seater section. And they were given the stewardess or the flight attendant the god-awfulest time. I mean, they were really, really obnoxious people. A guy, young fellow, I mean, it was about 20 years ago, so I was still not young, but a young guy who was probably in his early 30s. Finally, just got fed up and out loud said, "Boy, that's a great reason for birth control." The daughter was being, I mean, I totally, and I mean, for no reason at all. I mean, just tearing into the flight attendant because they didn't have, the plane was full and couldn't do anything. Some people come up with great comments sometimes.
Well, you remind me of a comment of a good comeback from a flight attendant. You all remember Muhammad Ali, and a little bit full of himself, a little bit boisterous, and he got on an airplane and he was refusing to do a seatbelt. And the flight attendant comes over and says, "Mr. Ali, it's a regulation. You've got to put your seatbelt on." And he said to her, "Superman don't need no seatbelt." And she looks down at him and she says, "Superman don't need no airplane."
Very quick.
That's told as a true story.
So some flights you can appreciate. I did some traveling, and I was coming back from St. Louis, and I ended up getting a much earlier flight, like early afternoon, and I was like the only person in coach. And I might have been one person up in first class. I had the whole coach section to myself. And flight attendant, "Hi, you like some wine?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll take a glass of wine," and red wine. And then I guess they had to open up a white wine for the person in first class. And we arrived back at LaGuardia, and we were chatting up, for the whole flight. I mean, they had nothing to do, so it was get back. He gets a shopping bag, and she puts the 2 bottles of wine in the shopping bag, and she says, "Take this." And the other flight attendant grabbed 3 more bottles, uncorked them, or unscrewed the caps, and these were the full-size bottles, and put them back and put those 3 into the bag. And I said, she says, "Well, we can't take back the open bottles." I ended up going home with 5 bottles of wine that day.
Anybody want to share experience at a restaurant, takeout, or eat in, and people who pass by on the street, just so that we can update our information?
I can share my experience from last week. We have a timeshare in Newport, Rhode Island. And Newport, Rhode Island used to be a state which, if you come back from, you have to go on quarantine. But this quarantine was taken off just a week before we traveled there. And when we came here, we found out that people are very disciplined. You cannot go into store without the masks. And even people on the street, 99% of them were masked. And of course, there is a 1% which, didn't obey the rules, so you still have risk. But in general, I could tell you, I was pleasantly surprised that people in Stamford, Connecticut, very disciplined with masks, and same applied to Rhode Island. So it's no wonder that the rate of contagious with COVID is going down, number of deaths going down. So it's very positive, signs. Just wanted to share my experience. Another thing which, of course, very noticeable is that number of yachts really went down, and number of tourists also is greatly down. So economy is hurt. That's no doubt about it.
Question I have about wearing masks and so on is you look at these athletes who make an exorbitant sum of money and they simply refuse to wear masks, socially distance. And you look at these sports teams that are playing and the guys are getting knocked out because of positive tests. Do not understand that. Is it just our age versus their age, and they still believe they're invincible? Something I just don't get.
Kind of in a bubble. They're in their own world, so they're really not communicating with the rest of the world. Baseball is different, but soccer, basketball is done in a bubble.
I think it's being stupid.
I'm personally getting disgusted with sports. I watch sports to get away from the world politics. And now, last night, a couple of basketball teams walked off the court because they're protesting with the whole Black Lives Matter. I watch sports to get away from the news and away from, secondly, they're athletes, and I really don't care what their opinions are.
A lot of people do.
Disgusted at pro sports right now.
Other people do care what their opinions are. They're big names. They have a lot of influence.
As if they know more than you.
So is the whole league.
Well, look at the political scene that you're talking about. You get a doctor, or you get some learned individual, respected individual that we would think, and they say something, and they are. I don't want to say ostracized, but they're demeaned. Yet you get some idiot movie star or rock singer or athlete that gives their voices their opinion, and people so and so said that. And no credentials, they're just an average person, but they get more respect than the respect, the people that should be listened to. So, it's a society.
It's some of the new millionaires are these people on that are called influencers.
Yeah.
And they're just, they could be teenagers. One of the Kardashian girls,
could have waited.
is the youngest billionaire going as an influencer on YouTube and other social media sites. And they have a tremendous amount of influence on young people and their decisions.
And
of manners.
And to use the famous expression that we use down in the Bronx, they don't know their asses from their elbows.
Exactly.
Hey, back to the athletes. Does anybody know the economics of those sports? I mean, for example, if a group of basketball players walk off at the beginning of a game for some reason, for protest, I mean, do they still get paid for that game? Because if you're making like $20 million a year, your salary per game is a pretty high dollar amount.
I would hope they wouldn't get paid. I know if it was my team, they wouldn't get paid.
I believe your team gets fined for not showing up.
Well, actually, the end result was the game was not canceled, it was only postponed. So presumably those games will be played just at another date.
Has anybody heard of any of these players or boycotting games to protest the violence that's going on?
No,
of course.
That's why they're protesting now, due to the violence in Wisconsin, the latest.
Well, is it the violence or is it unfortunately what sparked the violence?
No, it's what started the violence.
Yeah, but they're not protesting the violence itself.
Not at all.
And in most cases, these families that I've seen that where someone has unfortunately been hurt or injured are after saying, please don't riot. You know, you're not having respect for the individual that was killed or harmed.
Yeah, you're right. Something is wrong with society. They do not object to violence, but they object to police. This is the most ridiculous thing, you know.
90% of the protesting, though, is not violent. It's that 10%. You're always going to get that element. And some of it is actually started by white nationalists, too. So it's not as violent as you're portraying it.
And that's why
by the way, I have to disagree there because I don't think it's white nationalists are doing it as much as the anarchists are fomenting the trouble. And it seems to be a new trend. If you have a police incident taking place, no matter where it is, and usually they're the big cities, you end up having protests about it. And then the protest, in a sense, is hijacked by the anarchists who come in and their own sole object is to destroy property.
And loot.
And it doesn't matter. And how did Kenosha, Wisconsin come into play when it has, what was it, 12% minority population there, or maybe 20% if you count everybody? And no, I think this is the sequence that took place. A police incident, whether justified or not, a protest against it, and then the anarchists came in and said, aha, this is our opportunity at night. And they did. Unfortunately, the governor there sent in a token force of National Guard, 125 against 300 or 400 protesters and looters. Obviously, they're overwhelmed. Finally, he sent in a reasonable and sensible contingent. I'm reminded of Colin Powell's famous statement in the first Gulf War. He says, if you're going to invade somebody, you do it with overwhelming force. And that's how you defeat them. And that's what you need to do in these cities. And they do it tokenism. You know, 125 people against 1,000 people rioting. Obviously, they're going to be ineffectual. They barely keep themselves alive.
Well, you see in Europe or in Asia, when they have riots in the streets, they call out the fire department with the water cannons, and quickly the disturbances are dispelled and broken up. And it's nonviolent. It's not lethal force. But they get the message. Get hit with a spray of hose, you're going to move. We don't do that. Why? We used to, years ago, I remember in New York City, the fire department came out and hosed down the gangs when they were having, and the anti-Vietnam protests. They used the fire departments.
Well, the rioting always takes place in cities that have democratic administrations.
none of the 12th floor has any.
We can't protesters because they'll turn around in our court system and sue
So it can't be disarmed.
for unreasonable force. And they generally win in the liberal courts. So in this country, we're taught inhibited.
Yeah, one thing which surprised me is that United States is a very innovative country. Why invention is not made where you know, contain the person without, you know, shooting him? What's the difficulties? To me, it looks like somebody is not addressing the problem.
Well, they do have tasers.
There is for some reason they don't use them much.
Someone told me yesterday that their nephew is a police officer in Austin. And they are trained that if they believe somebody may have a weapon that could harm them, they are permitted to use deadly force. If someone fails to follow their instructions, and they believe that though not their failure to follow those instructions presents a danger to them, their training says that they can use deadly force. It's even if, and a taser can be a deadly weapon apparently in some, against some people. And this is coming from a police officer in Boston explaining to his uncle how they're trained. So if that training is sort of universal throughout police departments, it kind of explains why these events happen. But, you know, nobody's discussing at the moment, is this training correct? And are the officers, you know, concerned that every traffic stop they make, some guy's liable to come out, or some woman come out with a gun against them, and they're on edge. It's a question, but it's a tough question and no easy answers, but it needs to be discussed rationally. And frankly don't have a great idea how to do it other than to start the conversation.
Well, you know, to continue with that, I mean, if you look at some of the videos, even the altered videos for publication, that some of our stations don't show the full story, but if you go back and see the same video with the first, you know, as Paul Harvey used to say, and now the rest of the story, this was the beginning of the story. In probably 9 out of 10 cases where there's, you know, reaction by the police, is that the person who was affected didn't listen. I mean, if a cop says to you, stop, stay there, you stop and stay there, or any rational person would. I mean, these people, you know, don't stop. They continue, they put the, they escalate the situation by not obeying. I don't think any cop in his right mind who starts out wanting to hurt anybody, and if they would just, you know, if they say stay there and stay still, or get out of the car, put your hands where I can see them, if they did that, I don't think any, I mean, personally, I don't think any cop is out there looking to create a problem. And if you look at 9 out of 10 cases, even the one in Stanford, I mean, the guy ran, and I'm sure the cops, you know, were saying stop, stop, stop. He ran and ran and ran, and whatever he had in him and situation, I mean, unfortunate that he passed away. But if he would have just not done anything and said, hey,
but there's also George Floyds out there too. There's two sides to that argument. Don't forget the George Floyds that are just lying on the ground.
But what?
Not everybody's running away.
But no, what happens is, like I said, that's the edited version. What happened?
We saw it. There was nothing edited. We could see him leaning on his chest for 8 minutes.
Oh, wait.
Nothing
Sir,
edited.
may
No,
I-
but what happened to prompt that issue? What did he do? If they would have said to him, stop.
Nothing. He's
Tried
just
to
a
pass
bad
the
cop.
check.
I mean, stop, put your hands on the car. The guy stops, puts it, they're not gonna put him in choke holds or anything like that. There's no reason
Bill, if
to.
it's the wrong cop, they will.
By the way, yesterday, the autopsy report was released. That's the first autopsy report. The revised, edited version was released to the public later on.
Which
He
one?
was so loaded with fentanyl and another drug that he was beyond a lethal dose. And so he was really high out of his mind.
Who was that, Lloyd?
It was George Floyd.
Yes.
Okay.
And he was high out of his mind. So no matter what the police instruction was, I doubt very much it would have penetrated his action. It would never have occurred to him because he was.
His action did not justify the response, high or not. That's, who cares?
Who cares? Look what the damage that he did.
Was he attacking a cop?
Yes.
And so the police had more than.
This thing's deteriorate.
Yeah, it is.
So
Hey, can you take it?
Put his hands up and the police killed him directly.
Has everybody?
Now we find out there's a circumstances or mitigating circumstance that took place. And that may explain some of George Floyd's behavior to the police.
What's the telephone?
Police
I
response.
think you should believe your eyes.
We only know.
You take the telephone.
But not the
How did he behave?
fomenting behavioral problems that George Floyd exhibited. So
Yes.
that's the problem. The state withheld that autopsy report since early June. They
Has,
only released it yesterday.
has everybody seen that 12-minute tape that preceded the 7-minute tape?
No.
Okay, well, there again, that was something. It was from the body cams that the policeman had, and it was only leaked to the press a couple of weeks ago. But the state attorney has had it from the very beginning. So for 12 minutes, they basically tried to get Floyd into the police car. And after a few minutes, they got him to sit in the police car, but he had his feet outside, resting on the pavement. And they kept trying to move his feet into the police car. And he kept yelling about how he couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe. Now, this was way before the police did anything with his beating him or anything. And that sort of went on for about 12 minutes.
I still don't think that a man who's handcuffed and on the ground presents any real danger to the police officers involved.
Yeah, but if you know what went on before.
Yeah, but if that 12-minute tape is
mitigating
immediately.
By the way, another thing I remembered about reading.
Really counts as the last beat.
Was the
I don't care. I wouldn't care if he gave the finger to the guys and spit on the police officers. Still shouldn't kill him.
Well, the most recent in Kenosha, how can you justify shooting 7 bullets into the back of into his back?
Don't know.
Pretending that he.
No. I mean, one shot, could do it, but seven shots doesn't make any sense.
The response probably, Larry, was inappropriate. But if you looked at that, when he was on the opposite side of the car and they would tell him to stand still,
He didn't.
he didn't. That's what I was trying to say. If he would just have stood still and said, what?
If he was a white guy, he'd be alive.
Hmm?
If he was white, he'd be alive.
He is
Still
alive.
alive. He's still
He
alive.
is still alive. That's
He would've
beside
been
the point.
shot.
He's paralyzed.
Paralyzed for life.
Right.
I hate to say that, but if he was white, he might have stopped and listened to the cops.
Depends on the white guy.
Then he would have gotten shot. If he was acting and
that imply that white people should start acting like black people to make?
I mean, the point is that if he would have, when he was on the passenger side of the car, just stood still, there would have been no reason, you know, get the adrenaline flowing and everything else.
So what's the problem with the guy's he's driving a car, he's got a license plate in the car, he's a local resident. If the guy goes back to his home and he's arrested at his home, what's the big deal? He has to be shot because he's getting into his car? I mean, how many people have had trouble with their own kids where their kids don't listen to what they're being told to do?
We're not giving
And they get smacked.
Shoot him.
And they got a backhand across the mouth, and
Jane? Belt strap.
and they didn't do it again.
You know, this brings me back to the 1930s when we played cops and robbers as kids. And we must have gotten this from someplace. When a crime was committed, you stuck up your thumb and forefinger like a gun, or you had your toy pistols and you said, "Stop or I'll shoot." You must have gotten that from the way the police had been trained and operating. So that's nothing new. Seems to me when a policeman asks you to do something, you do it. And
That's how we grew up. We were told that by our
consequences
parents.
follow when you don't.
And the penalty for non-compliance is death. Is that what you're saying?
That's a serious penalty.
It's there's no comparison. It's out of proportion.
Hey,
Let me add two controversies here, okay? One, getting back to Floyd for a second, I would be interested in knowing if there was something between the cop and Floyd, because they both worked at the same bar. So I wonder if there was some issue that not justified it, but aggravated it. They may have had problems with each other beforehand, and which exasperated that situation. And in the other case that just happened in Kenosha, if you're telling a guy to stop and he's getting into the car, do you know if he's going for a weapon? You don't. You told him to stop. Now, whether you shoot him, that's a different story. But your mindset is he's not listening. He's getting into a car. What does he have there? Other than, in this case, 3 kids. So you can't put yourself in the cop situation all the time. And you can't put yourself into the person who's unfortunately hurt.
We're giving the perp the presumption of innocence, but we're not giving the police officer the presumption of innocence. He's there putting his life on the line, but we're giving the perp the presumption of innocence.
Yeah, good point.
Who would volunteer to be a policeman today?
Not me.
Who would volunteer to be a school teacher today?
Who
When
would volunteer to be black today?
abuse school teachers and uphold this. When I was a child, if the teacher complained, I was the one who was reprimanded. But today, teachers have to watch their words because the child is believed before the teacher. We're running into a very similar problem that the perp is believed before the authorities.
All that said that country is turned upside down.
Well,
And
no, it's not upside down. It's that it's being purposely
Manipulated.
that authority is undermined, but there are groups that wish to undermine the wonderful system of government that we have and want to destroy the system we have. It's not being done accidentally. This didn't happen. I'm not surprised by this. This is a movement to undermine and change our form of government.
could be.
Now you see how radical I've become.
I'd be concerned about the policeman, particularly his training, when he shoots 7 times and the guy's still alive.
The problem you have a clock. Most of the policemen have clocks, which are really automatic weapons, but they fire a tremendous volume of bullets in a few seconds. So it's not surprising that you fire literally one press of the trigger and you get 7 bullets out. Listen,
Yeah, but
I remember in New York City,
he's
Diablo
within 3 feet.
was killed getting out his wallet in front of his door or getting his keys out to go into his apartment. And the policemen, some policemen hollered gun and they fired their Glocks at him. My God, he was hit 30, 40 times. It's not surprising you're in front of a machine gun.
A true story. A Stanford cop years ago, when they had when a cop, one of the officers was shot and killed. The perpetrator was coming out of the old Davenport Hotel on what's now Washington Boulevard, and the cops were surrounding them. And he came out with a gun, and the police fired back. And this one particular individual was a detective and probably one of the most respected people I know or knew. He passed away years ago. Went to fire, and this is when they had the revolvers, not the automatic weapons. And when he went to fire the second time, his gun was empty. The adrenaline, and I'm sure the guys that were in combat, I wasn't, the adrenaline is so high that he fired 6 shots and had to pull the trigger 6 times and didn't realize he did that. And when, like I say, when he went to fire the second shot, he found his gun was empty. So,
wow.
I mean, it's with all the training and everything else that they have, they're human beings just like anybody else. And in a situation where somebody's shooting at you or potentially going to shoot at you. But yeah, the Diablo, Amadou Diallo situation, my comment on that is they only hit him 6 times and 41 shots were fired. That's bad.
Well, it's not unexpected because it's a Glock pistol. You fire and out comes a whole pouring of bullets.
No, it doesn't come out. You still have to pull the trigger each time, Lloyd, the same as you would with a revolver. It's just that you don't have to reload. After 6 times, you reload. I think they had 15-shot clips.
Yeah, it's semi.
So they can get 15 shots off, but you still have to pull the trigger each time. And the revolver or a semi-auto, you can shoot a trained person can shoot a revolver just almost as fast as a semi-auto.
Unfortunately, all this reminds me the fact that the culture of harm is at the cause. Policing is not a form of repression. Policing is a relationship with your community. If you are not able to create a relationship, you are landing basically on okay corral. Every day will be somebody that last night or nights before, the young man that said, I am here to defend the property, and then they shoot 2 people. I don't think it's a good direction or where we are going, and there's no debate or honest discussion. If you remove the gun from the people, also from the police, probably will be less people killed.
Easy to say.
I know, it's easy to say, but the point is one here, how can you see a picture of a young man with a rifle assault saying, I'm going to kill, I'm going to defend the property. That's is the start of anarchy. And then you have all this, your question at the beginning of about the conventions. You have, reminds me, the Mobutu African leader, that is a cousin, a brother, a sister. Everybody is become a dictatorial aspect. And I hope people realize of the risk we are going now to have.
Well,
The elephant in the room seems to be the whole racial issue, which stands behind a whole slew of these incidents which we're talking about. And it's very difficult to just talk about the individual case, forget that it's against the backdrop that we've had a number of these cases. And they seem to pattern that the society really has to talk about. And I think it's what the baseball players and the basketball players are trying to emphasize with their withholding of their services this weekend or this week.
What about the Black against Black crime? Why don't we list the number of innocent Black people who are being murdered by Black people? Why aren't those names listed? Why are we listing the very few that seem to involve police? We're not sure that the police are guilty. So far, many of the police have been found innocent upon investigation. But there are groups. Not too long ago, all of us remember that the innocent people in the Italian neighborhoods used to be afraid to speak out against the mafia, who was the cause of a lot of the crime trouble in the Italian neighborhood. But it was like this cancel culture. They were afraid to speak out, the innocent Italians. And the mafia took control of those areas. And we are allowing the Antifa people to take control and be the heroes of the Black people.
You're watching too much Fox News.
Pardon me?
I think you're watching too much Fox News.
I think you don't watch enough
Not enough.
Fox News. If you only watch CNN, you won't know both sides of the story. I like to watch both sides of the story, not just one.
Doesn't sound like it.
Yes, you mentioned that you haven't seen.
As my old history teacher back in high school used to say, when the New York Times was the liberal newspaper and the Daily News was the conservative newspaper, he would say, now remember this, read the New York Times and then read the news and then decide what is true, because both sides are going to slant it to their thing. And it was funny. And just a final note on it, I wanted to start off and have a discussion on the convention.
Sorry, I sidetracked you, Joe.
But it was interesting. I was watching, I guess, the first night, and I don't remember who it was, but came out and gave a speech. And I was watching it on CBS. And the commentator, not Nora, but the other guy, Major. And when he gave his synopsis, I was wondering if he was watching the same speech that I was.
Yeah.
I mean, he turned it completely around. Now, that's the problem that we're having. And, now I'm watching it on Fox only because I'm getting, at least, I'm hearing from the comment, whoever's commenting on the speech, what was said, not what they wanted it to say, or vice versa. So in any event, we're past our meeting time, and at least the discussion got a little lively towards the end.
Just one final note here, and I don't know where, I haven't checked out the website, but it doesn't seem to be a political one. So far this year, it says, now I don't know when they put it together, 111 Black people have been shot by police. 215 white people have been shot by police. So I don't know whether I can't, I just did a random search and said, this, yeah, I mean, and it goes by years, and it's more than 1 year statistic. It gets Hispanics and others in here, but I wonder sometimes whether the media, which I think is somewhat biased in either way, slant their story so you don't hear one side versus the other, and whether that's riling people up. And no one getting shot is an excuse, is acceptable. But
don't forget there's 6 times as many whites as there are blacks. So.
I mean, that's a topic for another discussion as to who perpetrates the crimes. 6 times more or less. So let's not get into that subject because we can debate that for forever. I think we'll end on a note of it's time to go get your masks if you need masks at Rippewam, and be careful today. We're supposed to have some violent thunderstorms, and I just got an email from Eversource that says if you're affected by the power, please call 800-286-2000. I know that phone number by heart because I tried last week calling it several times a day and couldn't get through. And when I finally got through, they said that my account is not eligible to report power. I'm not eligible to report power failures on my account.
Really?
Which for the last 47 years, I've been able to report everything on my account. So don't bother calling Eversource if you got a power failure. If you can get through, it'll take a week to get through to them.
No, the important thing is you got to live next to the Superior Court building or the police station. Then you're guaranteed to have power.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I had power, but it got uncomfortable the last couple of days because the air conditioner is not hooked up to my generator, but I was able to exist. Okay, guys, stay well, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. And I don't have any, hopefully next week, Carol has a doctor's appointment on Thursday. I may not be able to make it, but I think we'll just continue. I'm sure there'll be something lively coming up in the news over the next 5-6 days that we can kick around. So have a great weekend, guys.
If not, we need a volunteer to make the news.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you next
Have a
week.
good week.
Yep.
See you again.